What's good, family? Welcome to the second episode of the Raney and Roe Show. My co-host, my partner in crime, the amazing and talented artist Kayla Raney will be with us shortly. But I figured I would go ahead and get this thing started. As you can see, today is Wednesday, and our first episode was done on a Saturday, and we we did it on Saturday partially because it was my fault. I suggested, a Saturday morning while the sun was out, and we heard, some of the feedback, and so we decided, let's try to switch it up. Let's do it on another day. Let's do it on another night. And so we thought maybe Wednesday night would be a better night. And so here we are, Wednesday night at what 9:30. I guess we're a little bit late, right? But yeah, I think every week from now on, we're going to do a Wednesday night at 9:30. Kayla, she made
Hey,
it. She
I
made it.
did. Apologies.
All good.
Apologies.
All good. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
I was just telling, our people that it was my fault that we did a Saturday morning. And so we heard the feedback and we thought it would be good to go ahead and give it another day, another
Yeah,
time. So we're here on a Wednesday night at
here
9:30.
we are.
And
Yes.
yeah, so we're excited. I mean, I think this is cool. I hope this is good for everybody else. How you feeling, Kayla? You good?
Good, good. Yeah, to be totally honest, I'm like straight off of the tennis court. I literally just came and put on a Star Wars shirt because May the 4th be with you and
Happy
I kind of
holidays.
smell, but I'm good to go. Luckily you
Yeah,
can't smell me, so
it's all good. It's virtual. It's virtual.
yes, that's why.
Yes,
How are
yes.
you doing? How's your week going?
My week is going well.
Okay.
It's been trying, some situations I've had to deal
Yeah.
with, some conversations I've had to have been sort of tough,
Ooh,
but they've been good conversations. Um, Getting into a new routine with family life and things sort of changing, schedules shaking up a
yeah.
little bit. But all good things, all good things. So just really taking it a day at a time, taking a day at a time. I had a little sinus infection, you know what I'm saying? So I was like
Oh,
fighting that. Yeah, it was crazy. It was
oh.
crazy. But I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Um, so
Are you
yes,
smelling okay? Are you smelling better than I am?
yeah, oh, I'm good. I took a shower.
So you're prepared.
Yeah, I'm straight. I'm straight. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. But yes, we have what I think is a very cool show for you guys tonight. So
Sweet.
another part of the feedback that we got was that people wanted to hear more of our origin stories, how we got into creating and doing what we do. And
Yeah.
so we thought it would be cool to interview each other, to ask each other questions. And so this episode, it's my turn to interview Kayla, and so I'm excited. I studied broadcast journalism for a little while, and so interviewing people is something that I really enjoy doing. So, um,
Consider me intimidated.
oh no, no, no,
Deeply, deeply intimidated.
no, don't be
Do you want to
intimidated.
tell them how we decided who was going to go first in this shenanigan?
Yes, so we flipped a coin. We
We
flipped a coin,
did. Did.
and I don't know if she lost or she won.
We have no idea. We have
Right,
absolutely no idea. Ro
right,
just had to make a final call and he was like, I got to do this.
right. We flipped the coin, and then it was like, okay, so which one is which?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'll just do it. It's all good. Um, but yes, so I guess with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and jump on in, right?
Woo, all right, let's do this.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited. I think it's gonna be great.
I am going to see how this goes.
All right. So my first question is, how did you get into art?
Okay. I think this is the easiest of the questions. uh, so my mom was an artist. My mom was a painter and an illustrator, and actually some of my earliest memories from childhood are of sitting on the kitchen floor laying out like the insides of paper bags like paper grocery bags that we had ripped up. So, and like laying out the butcher paper, and then her showing me how to draw shapes and put them together to make different kinds of animals and like objects. So I was, I guess, really obsessed with fish, and I drew fish all over our house, like on the walls, on the furniture.
Right.
Because it was the only thing that I knew how to draw. So I was really lucky because I think, unlike a lot of artists in this field, I was really encouraged from pretty much the time that I could hold something to draw with to explore that side of me. My dad was a musician, my mom was an artist, so I was going to end up in something creative no matter what, and I can't harmonize to save my fucking life. So here we are.
Yeah. And so that's interesting because so for me, I grew up in a house. My dad played professional basketball. Like my uncles played college basketball. So I grew up around a lot of sports. And so I found myself in moments when, you know, I saw what my dad was doing and I would like purposely like not want to do what he was doing. Right. And so I would sort of try to break away from that. Did that ever happen with you? Like seeing that your mom was an artist and your dad is creative, like you're like, you know, I sort of want to separate myself. Did that ever happen?
Look, I mean, my teenage years were like a lot of people's teenage years. And I definitely went through a phase of, I want to do the opposite of whatever you were doing. But I think that was, oddly enough, the one area of my life that I never wavered from, even when I was going through that stage. I always knew I wanted to be a creative. The only time that I can think of is I briefly lost my mind after I left art school because I was so worried from what people were telling me. You know, you'll never be able to make it as an artist. There is no such thing as being a successful professional artist. I went out and I got a nursing degree as my like backup. I was like, okay, if all else fails, I'll just do this instead. And I worked in like post-op wound care and for like a year, and it was probably the most like horrifying job of my life. And it definitely cemented, all right, I'm gonna find a way to make this work.
So working in that field, being a nurse and doing that, I guess that leads us to my next question. What other fields have you worked in? And secondly, do you see how any of those fields have enhanced your life as an artist?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I've been very fortunate to primarily work in creative fields, with the exception of the time that I spent in nursing, which even though it was an extremely intense, and I would almost say like traumatic experience to work in the facility that I worked in the type of work that I was doing, that is something that I would take home and apply to paintings or whatever I was working on at the time as almost a way to cope with everything. And that's kind of how I had always approached art, was as like a coping mechanism, as like, this is the way that I process my reality, is through creating. So regardless of what kind of job I was working, like, I mean, I worked as a bartender for a long time. I've worked in retail doing like visual merchandising. I've worked in galleries and for nonprofit organizations. I've worked in teaching. I've been in lots of different professions, but each one affected my artwork versus my artwork affecting that profession. Does that make sense? Like, it was almost kind of a reverse of what you're asking.
Right.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. My next question is, so when I first came across you, I saw it was mostly comic book art. right? So I'm
Yeah.
seeing comic
Yeah.
book art, and I'm like, wow, this is great. So now, as I've gotten to know you,
Yeah.
I realize you do so many different kinds of art, from
Yeah.
painting to, I mean, we could go to, I don't even know all the names of the types of art that you do, right? And that's one of the most, admirable things about you and your craft. And so one question I wanted to ask is, do you have a favorite style of art to do?
Oh, like a favorite medium?
Yeah, medium. See, I don't even know what to call it.
Oh,
Right.
oil painting, hands down.
Word. Okay.
Hands down. It is my first love. That is what I went to school for.
Yeah.
I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and I majored in oil painting and minored in art history and gender studies and figurative oil painting. It will just always be the core of who I am as an artist.
What
And
do you love about it?
oh, there's something magical about the way that you can tell stories through the human body. And I
Mm,
think that's something that draws me to that subject over and over and over again. And it's something that I've realized in recent years as somebody who now works in comics. I had never really thought of myself as a storytelling artist before I ventured into comics, but reflecting and seeing how my painting process has changed
yeah.
since working in comics, I've realized that I am drawn to the stories that, like, the shapes of our face say, the way that our bodies can be manipulated and expressed in ways that tell such extreme spectrums
Yeah.
of emotion and stories of the life and the state of being that those bodies are in is like something that's always been really fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you find your way from oil painting, which it now that would be like more traditional? Would you consider that like
Yeah,
art? So how did you find yourself
yeah.
from there moving into, comic books?
Oh, so it was a weird journey. I so when I left school, I was a figurative painter. I was Beatrice and the Beast art for many years. Some of you watching this probably remember me from then. Um, I was a dark. I was classified as a dark artist. I specialized in figurative painting with sort of more gothic, like traditionally gothic styled or more um, dark themes
Mhm.
and lots of like erotica. Like that was a really big theme in my artwork for a long time. And eventually I transitioned into the tattoo industry. And it was in the tattoo industry that I was first introduced to digital art. By the time that I was working full time in a tattoo studio, almost everyone, had switched over to drawing on iPads. And that was, I mean, fascinating, but I was terrified because I am the most technologically illiterate person that you will ever meet. I I think somebody that I was talking to the other day didn't realize that I didn't know that you could use your cell phone as like an internet modem. That's a totally new concept to me. I wouldn't know how to turn on the computer if I didn't have to do it for work, you know?
Right, right, right.
So, and I'm the first one to admit I was something of a purist, and I really had a hard time coming to terms with the idea that digital art was real art, that
Wow.
it wasn't like an abomination of contemporary times.
Mhm.
And eventually the tattoo artists that I worked with, they wore me down and they were like, Kayla, you could do so much with
Yeah,
this medium.
yeah,
It would it would open up doors to you that you don't even know exist yet. So I did. I like
yeah,
bought a shitty cheap used iPad for like 400 bucks off Facebook Marketplace, and that was it. A
yeah,
year later, I was starting to dabble in character design. I did a lot of like D&D homebrew commission artwork.
yeah.
So like RPGs and cover art were kind of how I started dipping my toe into published artwork
Mhm.
through like a digital medium. And pretty soon people started asking me if I would consider doing comics. And here I am.
Yeah. So what was the most challenging thing about that transition?
Ooh. Um, I think it was the perspective change that has to come along with that.
Mm,
I had spent so long in the fine art world and really had spent so long sort of creating my identity around this idea of I am a fine art painter. My goal is to be extremely successful in galleries.
yeah.
That that was like my tunnel vision, you know,
Right.
that was my vision for how my career and my life would go. And it just piece by piece started kind of not falling apart, but transforming into something totally different. And reconciling that was really difficult for me internally, like
Right.
rediscovering what my vision for my future could look like.
Right. Right.
Um, and learning the tools, especially as somebody who had never had any interest in digital art whatsoever. And to be completely honest, I had never really had an interest in comics or manga or animation
Yeah.
before I got involved in the industry. My husband is like, he took me to my first comic book shop,
Word.
like not even 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow. Wow. And I mean, it makes sense though that would be a challenge just because if you were raised around a certain type of art,
Yeah,
and then you get older and then it's like you get introduced to something else, it's it can be a scary thing, right? And
yeah.
so my question is, now that success, I guess, has changed, what does success look like for you now?
Oh, it's a lot different than it used to be. um, Look, I'm still figuring that out. I'm
Yeah.
still figuring that out. This in the past 2 years, I have achieved what I had sort of shifted my perspective to believe was success, which I went full time freelance in comics and digital art.
Yeah.
That was to me like, okay, I've made it. I can make a living doing this
Yeah.
and I'm not going to starve or like be evicted from my apartment.
Right. Right.
And now I'm presented with this whole new world of, well, do I qualify success by the number of comics that I do? Do
Mm-hmm.
I qualify success by, do I get picked up by a major company like Marvel or DC or something like that?
Right.
And I don't think that those things really matter to me at this point. A much more it's much more about what is serving me creatively, what is like fulfilling me creatively, while also being able to balance like having a thriving business, uh, making a sustainable living. And now it's a lot more about the people that I'm working with and
Yeah.
how am I creating a system and a partnership with them to make sure that we're all experiencing the level of success that I have been so fortunate to like find.
Yeah. 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 That's great. Um, and I think that you're doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like I see you
I
doing that.
hope.
I see you building that
Yeah.
sense of community and really looking out for the people that you're working with and collaborating with. And so I commend you
Yeah.
on that, and I think that's great. And so I think I only have a couple of more questions.
Okay.
Well, I want to know, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received as an artist or just in life? Like what's one of the best pieces of advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've had some really important mentors in my life, and I I go back to over and over and over again this concept from a book called Art and Fear that was given to me by a life-changing high school art teacher that I had, Mr. Mike Geyer. And in the book, it details why art should scare the shit out of you
Hmm.
and how the moment that you're not scared by it anymore, you need to sit down and reevaluate whether or not you are still an artist.
Wow.
And that is something that I have never let go of, because I feel like it reminds me, push beyond your comfort zone,
Yeah.
push your boundaries.
Yeah.
If you think that you've arrived, keep going.
Yeah.
Um, and it's okay and good to be afraid. You learn from the fear. I mean, I think that like my story of the progression from gallery artist to comic artist illustrates that, right? Like, I went from being somebody who didn't believe that digital art was a real medium and a real respected, a art form worthy of respect, to that's how I make my living now.
Right. That is, I want to read that book. That is an amazing.
You should. It
Yeah,
is amazing.
that really sounds great. I want to check that out.
Art and Fear.
Art and Fear. Yes, I'm gonna check that out. So we have a few questions. We have a few questions from the community, right? So I guess I'm gonna throw these out here, and then you can answer these. One of our people asked, we should come up with a cool name for our people. By the way, I
We
don't know.
should.
We gotta come up with a
I
cool
don't
name.
know. I think they should give us input, what they would like to be called.
I agree. We can put a pin in that. We'll come back to that.
Yes.
But one question is, which one is your favorite tattoo? So if you're watching, you see, a lot of tattoos.
I do.
And
I
if you're
do.
listening to this, if this becomes a podcast, then you can't do that. And so now you know.
Now you have to go to my social media and creep on all my tattoos.
Yes. That's Rainy Days Art on Instagram.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
So yes. So which one is your favorite tattoo? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, I don't know. So, like, when you work in the tattoo industry, it's just a byproduct of being in a tattoo shop. I
Right.
would say maybe 70% of my tattoos, of which I have many,
Mhm.
I didn't really choose for myself.
Okay.
Yeah, they were just designs that, like, we're hanging out, it's a slow night, or like it's raining and nobody's coming in to get tattooed, and somebody's like, I drew this really cool thing. Will you let me tattoo it on you? And I'm like, fuck it. Yeah, like let's
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I do really love this tattoo, and it happened exactly that way. I was working at Artwork Studios with Louis Lopez, and Skip Pollock was one of our main tattoo artists, and he and I shared a mutual love for the band Ghost. And I don't remember if Ghost was coming to town or something, but he did a bunch of like pre-made designs for it, and like it was really slow one night, and he was just like itching. He was like, I really
Yeah.
want to do this. I really want to do this. So, and I don't know if I'm flexible enough to show you guys, but I have this really cool like side of the calf tattoo that is one of the masks from the band Ghost that they wore in their stage show.
Okay.
And Skip is like an unbelievable artist.
Mhm.
So it was like really, really well done. I mean, I'm not going to try and like put my foot over my head to show you guys, but if you really want to see it, you can probably see it on my Instagram somewhere.
All right, cool. Let's not, we don't want to like hurt our
It's not that kind of show, guys.
Yes, so we're good. Okay, that was a good answer though. I like that. Another question we have is, did you take any Procreate classes or just kind of figure it out as you went?
Okay, so the answer is both. I started with Procreate because that was what the tattoo world introduced me to. Is what a lot of the guys that I was working with were using. And they kind of showed me some of the basics. I was really unfamiliar with digital art. It took me a long time to figure out how to draw on a screen.
Mhm.
So I just started Googling things like how, how to get like the texture, because it was like a tactile thing for me. It didn't hear the sound of a pencil moving across paper. I didn't
Right.
feel that. So they actually make a iPad like screen protector that has a paper-like texture, specifically for like whack jobs like me that are like, I can't draw digitally because it doesn't feel like paper. And so I bought that, and that was like the light bulb went off. And so I just Googled and Googled and Googled and
Yeah.
Googled. And then once I got to a point where I was starting to take paid work, I did invest in a couple of classes to really show me how to use the tools at my disposal to the
Yeah.
fullest of my extent. But I've never paid more than $25 for a class. I think that's something that's like really important to note. You don't have to pay a ton of money to get educated on like how to use digital art programs,
Mm-hmm.
which circles back to accessibility and like all
Right.
those things,
I was gonna
which
say, yep.
exactly.
Yep. Okay. Okay. When is this is the next question? When is
Mhm.
Beatrice and the Beast coming back?
So I
The
get this
people want to
question
know.
almost, I know, I know. I get this question almost every time I do an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful. I can't express how incredible it is to me that even I think we're coming up on 3 years now that I retired the Beatrice and the Beast moniker, and people still ask like, when is she coming back?
Yeah.
The answer is complicated.
Okay.
The answer is complicated. Will Beatrice come back the way that she used to exist? I don't know. Beatrice was an autobiographical character, so I've grown a lot in the last 3 years. My art style has developed a lot in the last 3 years. So, will she be coming back the way you used to know her? Maybe. Is she coming back? I can't tell you that yet.
Okay.
That is a secret for a later date, which you can probably infer just from the secrets what
Right.
that
Right.
means.
Right. I'm like, we pretty much know now, but okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. The next question is, and I guess this sort of can tie into that a little bit. How do you come up with ideas for your own characters?
Okay. Yeah. That's a really good question. I like that a lot. So going back to when I was younger and knowing I would be in a creative field of some kind, there was a period of a couple of years where I really had to make the decision between whether or not I wanted to be a writer or whether I wanted to be an artist.
Okay.
Because something that I don't talk about much in the comic space, because I want to give the writers their due. But I really, really seriously considered pursuing writing professionally for a long time. I wrote a lot of poetry and short stories, and I've written Beatrice and the Beast for many years now. Um, and as a result, a lot of the characters that I do in my artwork come from those writings, from like short stories that I've written, from poems, from characters that I've invented over the years that are usually some type of reflection of real people in my life.
Hmm.
Um, they tend to be anthropomorphic. Like my favorite characters to draw are anthropomorphic characters, so like animal human hybrid characters.
Right.
Um, and like I said, art is my way of processing the world. So I process people and my relationships with them by sort of building these characters around them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really like the origin of a lot of them.
Okay. Dope. Dope. Dope.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Marvel or DC?
DC. Hands down.
Yeah. I
Hands
feel the
down.
same
DC.
way. Okay.
Yeah, that new Batman movie, like you could never convince me to go over to the Marvel side. Like
Absolutely.
I love both, but DC is oh.
Oh, come on, Addison. Come on.
Addison's gonna fire me now.
Oh man. Oh, also, what's good? What's good, JL? Good to see you, brother.
Hey.
Um, I have one more question. I have one more question for
Okay.
you. This has really been great. So we've been working together for like what 6 months now?
Couple months, yeah.
Yeah. And through
Yeah,
that time, I haven't really learned that much about you. We just been
I
like,
know.
you know what I'm saying? And so it's sort of
Isn't
cool,
that
like
weird?
hearing this, you know what I'm saying? But my last question would be,
Yeah.
if you um if you were talking to a young artist or a young creative and you had, one piece of advice that you would just want to tell them, right? Like what would that
Mhm.
be?
Read the book Art and Fear.
Okay.
That's number one. Two, and I say this anytime I'm talking to, I do like guest speaking for high schools and things like that. Anytime I'm talking to younger people trying to get into art professionally, don't doom scroll. Don't obsess over what social media has constructed as this image of what an artist is supposed to be,
Yeah.
what their productivity is supposed to look like. It is so important that you find your own identity as an artist before you even start to try and pursue art professionally. And it doesn't have to cost money. I
Mm,
think that's another thing that I wish somebody had told me a long time ago
yeah.
was if you are self-driven and self-motivated, you can absolutely do what I do.
Mm, mm,
It comes down to sheer willpower. How much are you willing to put in? How hard are you willing to work for it?
yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. Your talent, how much of your education revolved around art, that stuff is just window dressing. It comes from like, be sure of yourself, be sure of your ability to keep going even when you don't think that you have anything left to like give or eke out.
Yeah. 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 That's great. And I guess to as you were speaking, I just was thinking about the quote,
Yeah.
comparison is the thief of joy, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can compare yourself all day to people, you know what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
really you got your own path that you got to walk, you got to follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're wrapping up. That was my last question. We're going to go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah.
Before we do, I just want to say, Kayla, I really appreciate you and I'm grateful to be in relationship with you and to be working with you and to be doing the show with you. As soon as we started working together, the first thing that I saw was just how big your heart is for creatives and the creative community. And you've just been a real resource to me, just helping me think through things and um, showing me that there's access to things, you know what I'm saying? And I just want to
Yes.
say, I really appreciate you. And like I said, I'm grateful, to be in a relationship with you and to work with you and to build with you. So
Like, don't make me cry on camera, okay?
no tears, no tears.
I appreciate that. That's really important to me, and I the feeling is of course mutual, and I'm just so thankful and so appreciative to be able to be like building this with you, and this is a lot less scary than I thought it would be.
I told you, I told you. And
Yeah.
next week it'll be my turn. You're gonna
Yes,
interview me, you're gonna
my
ask me questions.
turn.
Yep,
I'm
yep,
so ready. I'm so
yep, yep.
ready. Now, no pressure. If you guys, those of you watching, have things that you want me to ask Ro about, make sure that you DM me, make sure that you leave comments. Uh, yeah, yeah. I gotta think of some really juicy questions. We're gonna flip this script a little bit. Maybe
No,
you
I'm
should
good.
be scared for
No,
next
I'm good.
week. Yes.
But yes, so we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. We
Yeah.
appreciate all of you. Thank you guys for showing up, kicking it with us for a little bit.
Yeah.
We will be back next week. As we just said, next Wednesday
Mhm.
at 9:30. I'm going to be getting interviewed. And soon we will have a Facebook page or some page where we can sort of have like
We're
start building sort
doing
of
the thing.
community, yeah, for us or whatever. So I'm excited about that. And Kayla, do you have anything else you want to say?
You can find us in all the places.
Yes,
you
yes,
can you can find me at Rainy Days Art.
yes.
If you're not already on Rainy Days Art watching this, you can find me at www.rainydaysart.com. You can also find me pretty much anywhere Ro is right now. So
Yes. And you can find me on Instagram at Rolam. You can find me at rolam.com. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Rolam, where I do poetry,
Do
short
it.
stories, and just, any kind of things that I'm working on, writing on. So yeah, those are the things. And thank y'all so much. We appreciate you guys
Yeah,
for
thank
kicking it
you.
with us, and we love y'all. Have a great night.